Your business is stuck because you're extremely disciplined. In fact, you're way more disciplined than founders making 10 times what you're making right now. You've managed to maintain perfect discipline for months, even years, at avoiding the exact behaviors that would 10x your revenue. In other words, you're ultra disciplined in staying safe rather than becoming rich. And that's why your business is stuck. Despite trying the Pomodoro method, dopamine fasting, time blocking, those approaches try to build new discipline when your existing discipline is already operating at maximum efficiency. Your discipline doesn't need fixing. It needs retargeting. And after working with 400 plus founders, I've noticed that those that are making like 20 to 50K are way more disciplined than those that are making more than 2 million. Not less, they're actually more. Because maintaining a low threat business requires extraordinary consistency on the wrong things. And I've been guilty of this before. I was a guy who was over-delivering to current clients instead of prospecting new ones, or refining positioning instead of testing new offers, or optimizing existing systems instead of increasing volume on outbound channels. I was elite level disciplined, just as my clients, on the wrong thing. I was aimed at behavior that suppressed revenue instead of generating it. And the founder who can get disciplined to prospect isn't broken. They've just trained themselves to protect the things that would make them wealthy. And here's why this happened at a brain level. You have two sides of the brain. The conscious brain is the part that wants to be disciplined, that doesn't actually control behavior. Your unconscious brain, the part of the brain that wants to avoid threats and stress, does. So your threat detection system has one job: to predict and minimize threats. And every behavior you've ever repeated gets encoded as either threat reducing, so you do this more, or threat increasing, so you avoid this. Like for instance, making 20 cold calls. Your brain flags social threat, exposure to rejection, ego risk, emotional load. Don't do this again. Or reorganizing your CRM. Your system reads predictable, controllable, safe, I know how to do it, no social cost, do more. So your discipline automatically routes to whichever behaviors your brain has encoded as safer. Not through conscious choice, through pattern prediction, trained over thousands of repetition. That's why willpower seldom works, because you're fighting threat prediction that routes discipline away from revenue generating behaviors subconsciously and automatically. And I've noticed many six-figure founders stuck between 20K to 50K that they stay there because they do not engage in high-risk behavior that actually drive explosive growth. Like my clients, they would rely on referrals, which is low social threat, or inbound, no rejection exposure, or small clients, so minimal pricing conversation, over-delivering, for instance, so you avoid hiring decisions, or doing everything yourself. Again, no hiring decisions. So over time, their nervous system optimizes perfectly for that equilibrium. But breaking past roughly 50 to 60K requires behavior that the average person has encoded as high threat, like outbound prospecting. You are exposing yourself to rejection, or writing thought leadership pieces on LinkedIn. You have a visibility risk, or raising your prices. People will probably buy less, or hiring, so you lost control, or systematizing, you let go of control. In essence, you have to switch. Where do you direct your discipline towards? Otherwise, you're always going to be stuck at the same level. And I've mapped out for you, how does your discipline need to evolve over time? If you want to go from 20K to 50K a month, your discipline must retarget from perfecting the offer to testing offers with real prospects. From 50K to like 100K, you must retarget from everything done by yourself to systematizing so people can help you. Then from 1 million to about 2.5 million, you must retarget from protecting your own capacity to building your team capacity. You need to be a master hirer. And finally, from like 2.5 to about 10, you must retarget from avoiding visibility to consistently showing up at the face of your business. So in essence, you reroute your discipline you are currently directing towards the wrong thing. You recalibrate your threat detection. And the founders who scale, they didn't develop superhuman willpower. They just retrained their brain to stop seeing some tasks as threats. Let me show you how this looks like in real life. I recall a client who had about 30K a month and he knew exactly what to do, but he didn't trust himself to actually do the thing that he would tell clients he would do. And over time, he started literally not delivering to his clients because his nervous system has encoded that every time he tried to do that specific thing, he had an agency, he had broken these promises 100 times, so he didn't do it because he had also tried in the past to post on LinkedIn, but he barely posted. He needed to do free work for prospects prospects, and they would research the prospect for hours, but never actually send the free work. So he never really got many clients. So over time, he literally had trained his system that avoiding growth behaviors was literally the path to stay safe. Another client that he was stuck at about 40K a month, and he would like book 10 to 15 calls every single week. He would close 20 to 30, but he was only closing 5K clients. And every time he had a 30K opportunity, or he had an idea, or some of the clients he was pitching to would ask for a bigger package, he would always say, let's just start with a smaller engagement and then we expand later. And he thought he was being strategic. He wasn't. He was afraid of big deals. He thought that big deals implied risking the business that he had built to 40K a month. In essence, his threat detection had mislabeled large deals as threatening. That's why I say that rewire your threat response is one of the fastest way to grow your business, because you stop seeing the hard work as a chore, as a threat, as something to avoid, and instead you start seeing it as the natural next thing you need to do to succeed consistently. You have to rewire your nervous system and brain to encode revenue-generating behaviors as safer than revenue-suppressing behaviors. And we typically do it with 3 protocols. One is exposure training, right? This is classical conditioning. You repeat exposure to the threat behavior until your brain learns that it does not produce catastrophic outcomes. So in essence, you have to do 100 cold calls. You start by doing 20, then 25, then 30. You get feedback every time that you do it. You gamify the process of doing it. You trick your dopamine system so that you eventually look forward to completing the next best action within this cold calling system, until within 1 or maybe 2 weeks down the line, you are consistently putting in 100 cold calls. That's the first way, exposure training. Second way is environmental design. It's making the avoidance behavior more threatening than the execution behavior. And something I like to use here is something called nudge theory. It's basically doing some sort of commitment, putting money on the line, or accountability that creates some sort of social cost. Avoiding the behavior becomes a greater threat than doing the behavior. And finally, the third thing, which is what really everybody needs to be focused on, is capacity expansion. It's increasing your brain's ability to handle the loads. So behaviors that previously registered as threats, now they're just plain vanilla. And this is what elite founders and operators do. And this is not mindset work. This is not about obsessing yourself with doing the right things. This is rewiring your brain through specific protocols that change your inbuilt factory systems. Exploding your revenue is not about working harder. It's rewiring your brain to do the hard work, or staying extremely disciplined on the thing that don't matter. And if you want to be an elite founder, you must absolutely do exposure training to recalibrate that threat prediction. Use environmental design to redirect your discipline, and then build capacity so you never get overwhelmed. This is the 3 protocols that make you a better founder over time. So if you find yourself stuck, knowing there's something you have to do you're not doing, realize that it's not a lack of discipline that is keeping you stuck. You're very disciplined at not doing it. What's keeping you stuck is your brain threat response that needs to be rewired. And this is not mindset. This is performance engineering. Exactly the kind we do at Selfmastered. What you need to actually become successful.